I greet you in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. We are still on that puzzling name, Yahweh. For some of you who have already read my book, you have seen the argument. But when it is found in another Hebrew syntax, you see, which we call an nifo, you see, yes, and it simply means he who has the ability to create out of nothing. He who has the ability to create out of nothing. See how complicated the name is? Yes. And that is precisely where the Hebrews were able to get, let alone as they were compiling their history, that God is the one who created this planet. He spoke, and when his word comes out, it is an active word which works and creates out of instantaneously. You see, things come out of nothing. Because of his name, Yahweh, again, found in that syntactical kind of construction. So, for us who date God's activities, we may not fully know precisely which year precisely, but we know it was during Adam's time. You see, Adam's period, when he invaded this planet to begin his journey to save you and me, to begin his journey of restoring faith in us, so that we can look at him and say, he deserves my allegiance. He deserves my worship. He deserves my faith. He deserves everything of mine. And now he crosses from a homestead God to a national God during Mosaic time. Moses. In Egypt, they know him as Moshe. Yes. His time, when he was looking after sheep, he crossed over now to a national God. And we will also date him well when he crossed over to a universal God. Everything is properly now. We can speak with confidence. But now let's look at Moshe going to Egypt. Don't worry of all these miracles, simple sticks, and what have you. All of those were small issues as Moshe was trying to run away from his responsibilities. But God has said, go tell Pharaoh that let my people go. Now he has a people. Previously, Yahweh hadn't a people to talk about in terms of the culture of those days. But now he has a people to talk about in that culture. Yes, he has now begun the game. Go with that ultimatum. So Pharaoh was not, he might have been a proud person and intransigent, kind of, but he was raising fundamental questions, which sometimes we take offense in our preaching. If even Moses is going to know the name of the God of Abraham and the God of Jacob at that very time, that is Yahweh, how did you expect Pharaoh to have ever heard of Yahweh? And you know precisely when Moses came. I am not going to deal with how did he ever find himself in the palace. I'll talk of that afterwards. You see, but for now, I have an issue at hand, which I wish each one of us to fully digest. He goes to fulfill his job. And for the first time, the Israelite people learn that they have now a God who cares. Previously, he was God of Jacob, God of what, and that's where it stopped. But now, this is the time they now know that God is now God of, is going to be God of Israel, is our God now. Yes. Time has come to pass now that he is not a family God anymore, homesteaded God anymore, but he is a God of Israel. Let my people go. You know what transpired. Yes, but we are on the firstborn sons here now. Since God could hang on the firstborn sons at any time on some impulsive kind of element and say, this one, sacrifice, this one, sacrifice. That's why Yahweh comes into Egypt, where he is not known, and he is going to supersede all the gods and then kill all the firstborns. The question is this. The question is this. When Moses said Yahweh is coming to, he will kill the firstborn sons, you think Pharaoh accepted it? What has Yahweh to do with our firstborn sons? He isn't a God of Egypt. You see? He has never even ever acted as a homestead God in Egypt. Which power does he have? You see, it is the gods of that very land which can claim the firstborn of those of those lands. A Mesopotamian god couldn't come to Egypt and demand a firstborn as a sacrifice. No. If he wanted the firstborn sons to be sacrificed to him or to her, I don't know, whatever circumstances, had to go back to Mesopotamia because they are there too. Are you following me now? You see, this is a very important point. God was becoming very presumptuous, if not arrogant. Yes, he could invoke attack and annoyance. Firstborn son die, and who is killing them? They had their own gods. Yes, there were so many there. Osiris, name it. Tiamat was on and off, and there are so many there. And I have cataloged some for you in the Defenseless God. The names of the leading ones. Had he been or she been Osiris or Tiamat or Apsu, you see, asking for the firstborn of Pharaoh, that would have been a different story. It would have even caused concern. Yes. Because it is a God of that very place. But a foreign God whose name has never been heard of. Yes. We are hearing his name in Egypt for the first time. And we are not even anxious to have him as our God here. He is coming to kill our firstborn sons. Everybody laughed. It was a laughing matter. Seriously. It is going to take faith now. We are back to this element of faith. To even give it a trial. Yes, get it. Those were the cultures of that very time. Some Egyptologists are very strong on this point, that God was so unfair, you see, to come in the land where he has no command. Are you aware that one of the reasons he gave why he would like his people to go, so that they can worship him in the wilderness? You read your Bible very well. Why couldn't he let them worship him there in Egypt? Why didn't he tell Pharaoh, from now onwards, these are now my people, and I am their God? A proposal which I think Pharaoh would have accepted, that let him be their God. But that couldn't even be true, though. Because once there is a home, no, not a home, a national God in the land, or gods, two of them sometimes, but usually one was always on top of all others. When there is a national God, no another national God could come, and also, a national God could come and become again a national God in the same territory. Let me say it again. It was just like a home. You can't have two families in the home comfortably. They can go somewhere on your homestead, and they can have their own house, but you can't have two families in a squeezed home, and you think the situation will be good. The culture of those times rejected that kind of behavior on the part of gods. If God came and there was already a national God, and he wants to compete with him, he had to fight him and defeat him. And if he doesn't defeat him, then he will flee and leave. For example, if Yahweh wanted to become a national God in Egypt, his people, who are Israelites, would have declared war on Egypt. Since in those times wars were fought between the two gods, you see, if Israel would have won the war, then they will send the other god of Egyptian packing, and then Yahweh can become an Egyptian god, which was almost already an empire anyway. But if there is no war, either a God who wants to become a national God has to go out and get his own land elsewhere. That is what is all behind the Exodus. It isn't as easy as it appears on the surface. He had to go elsewhere. Hence, Yahweh told the fellow, I have not come to fight to become a national God here. I want you to let my people go, meaning I want to leave your land of your Egypt, and I have my own land elsewhere where I will be with my people. That very God turns around and he says he's going to slaughter the firstborn sons of Egypt. See, contradiction. According to the culture of those days. Contradiction. How can that be possible? So that's why people were reluctant. Now look at the way God was prescribing his action. But if you want them to be saved or to stay alive, put the blood on your doorpost. A blood? Yes, on your doorpost. Then I will pass over. I will not kill them. But if you don't, I will kill. Everything requires faith there. Compared to the culture of that very time. A God who does not belong to as a national God in Egypt, he is now commanding that is coming to kill our sons. On what basis is he standing to come and kill our sons? Is he a God of Egypt? No. Everybody laughed. You see, first of all, he has no power to demand any son there for sacrifice. No son can be sacrificed simply because Yahweh, who is not ever heard of, is demanding. Some Egyptologists argue that even Pharaoh went as far as asking his priests to see whether he can bring 10 names of tough gods and see whether Yahweh's name is present. They brought 10 lists of tough gods, but Yahweh was not even there. Yes, Yahweh wasn't there. And Pharaoh was more generous. He says, bring another 10, which is almost to become tough gods. Bring and see whether Yahweh is almost climbing only. His name was not even there. First of all, the people he's arguing that these are my people, let them go, were slaves. A God who can't even do better for his people. You see, he is the one now who is telling a God of Egypt who has made Egypt very rich and powerful to enslave those people. There were very many indeed. Don't take the number of the census of the Bible. Census always of Jews have a lot of problems. Now, if this God was tough, why did he let the situation for his people to become so bad and so deadly and so dangerous? God works in his own way. You see, he can bow to the culture and he turns around and he uses culture for his purposes. God bless you.